The right hand path is very much in need of an enemy, of the dark brothers, of the devils, because with those, then they can identify, they can draw the line. Dude, when you go over to the left hand path, you realize the angels are just as evil as the demons, and sometimes even more so. That it's not, there is no clear delineation, and honestly, there's magical battles and wars going on all over around us all the time. None of them are of any consequence, really. Not to me, not at this moment, and not to anybody who takes and harnesses that, because the forces are there. We're living in a whirlwind of power. Now, focus on what part of that you want to take part in, bring that into your life, and then it starts to swirl around you. You can start to unite with it and then guide it to where you want it to go.
Yeah, it's really, once you really become cognizant of that power, and I know same for you and the same for, a lot of your viewers and students of your programs and things of that nature, that, like once you are cognizant of it and your eyes are truly open, you begin to see the world in such a different way. And then you can kind of look back and identify, certain aspects of your life where, whether you realized it or not, you were already accessing those powers, and that you were already able to wield certain powers. But, it always seems like it's something that wasn't maybe of your own doing. Maybe it was just, as you always say, it's always going to seem like it's coincidence. But, I think that it's like there's so many people that are magicians that they would never admit to it, because, in doing so, that would just rob them of their identity and who they believe that they are. And it would just flip their world totally upside down, especially a lot of these, diehard Christians and people that are in these religions. It's like like you were talking about before, they live in such a denial, and, that they are actually scared of their own power, because that's what they have always been taught to do. I mean, they've always been, taught to stay away from that kind of thing, and to feel and live as if they are powerless.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, for me, it's just such a radical change that took place once I did become cognizant of the fact that I can wield this power. And I look back and I see all these things that I created in my life prior to being cognizant of it, that I was in fact tapping into all of those channels and all of that power all along.
For a lot of people, I think what the occult studies do is gives us a vocabulary for things that we've already been experiencing. It's you can definitely learn new things, but a lot of the time it's being able just to name it and say, this is what's happening. Now, the powerful thing is that that once you do name it, once you name a thing, you have power over it. Was one of Azazel's big teachings to me, is that you can't cure a disease until you can name it, and then you name it and you start to understand it. And so as soon as you're able to kind of identify, as soon as you become conscious of a thing, this is one of the really cool things that I've found, is that as soon as you, especially if you're a magical being, and not everybody is, maybe, I might be wrong, but we have never seen in the history of humanity a society that is 100% shaman. That the shaman is an outlier. That's and maybe that's changing, because we are seeing, I think, more shaman and magicians and true prophets in this day than have ever walked this earth, for sure. But anyways, I have no idea where I was even going with that, bro.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm at that point myself where I've gotten so caught up in it that, my head is spinning as well.
Yeah. No, but There was you would ask a question that was awesome, and I almost had it. I was headed towards the answer, but that's all right.
Well, I guess this is a good place to wrap up this segment of this series, and I can't wait to jump into the abyss here with you, because I know that there's so much more that we had to touch on, and I think that it's really, really going to be an interesting series that we're going to put out here to people. It's really kind of strange that that we are kind of talking about these things on the eve almost of a very, very important moment that's going to take place here on the 7th, I believe, which is this coming Sunday. Would be the ushering in of the age of Aquarius, and Jupiter and Mars being the 7th house, there's going to be some radical shifts, I believe, that are going to take place. And I think that a lot of people will be able to identify even more so after that date than they can maybe right now with all of these things that we're talking about now. So I'm really anxious to see how everything plays out come Monday, following this huge cosmic shift.
Well, now, so one of the things that was interesting to see with the December 21st, 2012 thing is these cosmic shifts, they have a lead up. It's like when you're hitting Mercury retrograde. As you're leading up to it, shit starts dragging. You hardly get anything done. And then it hits, and it seems like everything's coming undone. It seems like you're doing a lot of rework. You're having to go back and figure shit out again. You got to scrap the whole project and start over, whatever it is. Then it starts moving out of it, and you kind of see things picking up a bit, and then there's a slingshot. Boom, it's fast. Now, here's the thing that we saw with 2012. Immediately after, like the day after, nobody was in the streets, dancing around about all the change that was happening. But since that date, look at how many revolutions have occurred. I mean, in religion, in society, in world politics. Look at how things have evolved. And I do think things have evolved. People can look at the world, and people do like to look at the world in a negative view and say, oh, things are so bad. Look at all this is going on. No, it's just all the shit is bubbling to the surface. And now we're aware of it. Now that we're aware of it, we can fix it. Just becoming aware of something, it starts to resolve itself. Now, so we have seen, and there's specifically a 3-year kind of a catch-up period. So we saw 3 years before 2012. What did we see? We saw things slowing down, just like Mercury retrograde. We see things start to fall apart. What is that? What's going on? Boom. 2012 hits, things start to change, in my opinion, for the better. And now we're hitting, interestingly enough, we've just barely crossed the threshold from adapting to that change. And now, like you said, Sunday, we've got this other one coming. And 2018, astrologically, there's some shit coming, and a lot of it is good. I mean, I guess that you can take it either way. I guess if you don't embrace it, it won't be good. But those of us that are going to be standing out in the moonlight and performing, I'm telling you what. So for the ushering in of this, you asked me, privately in chat last night what I plan to be doing. I'm doing sex magic ritual with my girlfriend. She's not really, she doesn't participate very much in ceremonies, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to have a problem with that one. But ushering it in, I'll tell you, sex magic is powerful, and most times I don't use it for little shit. If I need a little thing to happen, sex magic is an atom bomb. And so this is something I'm just going to use to open up the doorways. that's what I'd recommend to you if anybody's out there that's not sure what to do. Find a partner or make some private time for yourself or whatever. And specifically as we're entering into the age of Aquarius, there are a lot of connections there with not only love, emotions, that sort of thing, intimacy, but also a merging of waters. There's a lot that's in there. So, anyways, I'm excited for it. There are a lot of people that are predicting a lot of things. That are predicting that the changes are gonna be negative, and I don't know. Maybe some of them are. I don't know. I can't say that they're not going to be. I think we are going to see some pretty major upheaval. But I also have a lot of faith, actually, in humans. We're pretty spectacular beings, really. The things that we can survive through as a species, is ridiculous. And by the time we've completely destroyed this planet, we're going to be on Mars. Thank you, Elon Musk. That guy is he's one of my heroes for sure. So get us to Mars. We'll go destroy that planet, and then we'll just keep moving on.
Yeah, I mean, and I found in my life that, it's controversy and that adversarial spirit, bad things that may seem to happen in my life, that is the catalyst for the good stuff. So, it's really, this may rock a lot of boats, and this may really cause people to get out of their comfort zone through things that may seem negative, but ultimately it's going to turn out to be a huge positive for people.
So with that, yeah, like I was saying, when you start applying heat, all the shit bubbles to the surface, and you get to see it. And so, Michael Tsarion, he's an alternative historian, and he's got an awesome website, Taroscopes. He's a really, really cool dude. I've reached out to him a couple times to do an interview with him, and he's very, very busy, but he always does respond, letting me know he's busy. But awesome dude. Anyways, I was listening to an interview he was doing on Coast to Coast AM. This was back in 2007 or 8, and he was talking about what was coming up in 2012. And he says, one of the things you're going to see is that things start falling apart. And the things that are falling apart, they might be meant to fall apart. And so rather than rearranging furniture on the Titanic, maybe it's time to jump ship on certain things. Now, obviously, if you get a little bump in the road in your relationship, that doesn't mean give it up. But take these things as cues. What needs to change? When I do a ritual, this is the biggest thing for myself. When I do a ritual for myself, I have a 100% success rate. And a good deal of that is that I recognize the signs that come to me in the world around me. So I do a ritual for money. There are opportunities that develop, or even just signs that say start doing this or thinking things differently in this way. My intuition will start to kick in and direct me to things. And I listen to and obey all of that, and everything turns out perfectly for me every single time. But here's the thing: is that the ritual always works. It always works. Sometimes people just aren't aware of it as they're looking around and going, "Oh, well, that was an interesting opportunity, but when's my money going to come?" But anyways, when you start seeing things that are getting shaken up, things that are being disturbed, you need to take a close look at those and say, well, what do I need to do to make this different? I'm going to tell you, I from time to time, I've got a therapist that I'll see. It's been about a year since I've seen him. He helped me out. He helps me out as I need it. For a bit, I was seeing him kind of regularly, just dealing with all the bullshit of life, and really, honestly, in dealing with how to come to terms with being a public figure. Like, that was really, really hard for me. I had some struggles with not having privacy and that kind of thing. And I mean, I'm not like at some big celebrity level, but the level I was at, it caused some internal turmoil for me quite a bit. And thankfully, seeing this guy, I've seen a lot of therapists. Most of them are quacks. This guy, he helped me massively. a good deal of that was through hypnosis, but also through kind of just talking through things. But I sit down with them, and I was looking at getting on medication for anxiety. And so I chat with him for about an hour about it. And at the end of it, he can't prescribe the drugs. I would have to go to a physician for that. But I was coming to him for his advice on it. Is this going to be a healthy thing? I know what at this point, honestly, I try to avoid anything that's chemical. If it's a plant or a fungus or something like that, I have no problem partaking. But if it's in the right setting and it's something that's going to be a positive experience for me, if it's chemical made in a laboratory, for the most part, I don't like it. Anyway, so I'm asking about this kind of thing, and specifically with benzos, with anti-anxiety medication. I've been on those in the past, and they kind of turn me into a retard. I mean, that's not a very appropriate word to say. I guess they make me not function at my fullest capacity. And so I ask him about it. We're talking about it, and at the end of it, I go, so what do you think? Should I go get a prescription or not? And he says at the very beginning of this conversation, one of the first things you said is, I feel like my emotions are talking to me. He says, now if your emotions are talking to you, when you feel anxious, you got to look at what you're feeling anxious about. Rather than telling that emotion to shut up, tell it to talk to you more. Now, what am I anxious about? Now, if it's a situation, a lot of the times it's a situation, I have to decide then, well, in this situation or relationship, can I do anything to relieve the anxiety? What would make me feel more at peace with this? If I can do something, whether that's a conversation or a change in my behavior, something that I can add or subtract to the equation, then I do it. And then there comes the point of, well, if I can't do anything about it physically, can I do something about it magically? Can I do both? But at that point, it becomes a problem-solving thing, rather than seeing the emotion as being your enemy. It becomes your teacher, and any emotion. And so as we're coming into this next phase of our evolution, you got to listen to that, and don't ignore it, unless it's. I guess some people may need medication. If you feel like you need medication, I'm not going to tell you not to. You put whatever you feel like you want to put in your body that makes you have a more positive experience with life. That is not my call to make. For myself, though, I've seen what does it for me. And but anyways, going forward, your intuition is going to start speaking to you more strongly, I think. If you're mildly intuitive, you're going to become heavily intuitive. I've already been seeing this. My whole business is built on seeing and helping people develop this. It's going to get kicked to the next level. And I feel like the work that I'm doing and that you're doing, that as professionals in this field are doing, is a reflection. This is amplified for a reason. Like the fact that this is so front and center. We're just the vessels, and my job at this point is just to try to become a better vessel, a clearer vessel for all this stuff to come through.
And it's really interesting that you bring that up, because this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, because I have personal experience with it, and it seems like there has been an influx of people going through, what people, what I guess certain groups have classified as a spiritual emergency, but if you go to see, a psychologist or psychiatrist, they're going to say that you have schizophrenia or you have bipolar disorder. They're going to try to prescribe that medication to quiet those voices and to stop those hallucinations and different experiences that people are having, whether, they're on the spectrum of overwhelmingly, happiness, or on the spectrum of, just complete terror and depression and things like that. And I noticed that when that began to happen to me, when I, kind of classify as my spiritual awakening, I was going through a lot of turmoil. You know, I was having a lot of moments of complete ecstasy, but I was having a lot of moments of sheer terror and deep depression on the other end of it. And you know, you know, the medication that I began to take, because I really, you know, my family life was falling apart, and you know, my wife had left several times, and you know, with the kids and everything, and you know, I kind of felt it incumbent upon me to try to do something about it if I could, because I didn't want my life to fall apart. And you know, I love my family, and you know, I was willing to do whatever it took to try to get my life in order. But I wasn't really, you know, even though I had an idea of what was happening, and I always had believed it to be spiritual, I still subjected myself to this medication. And yes, it did settle everything down, but at the same time, you know, it quieted everything. You know, it took away my intuition. It took away my ability to feel and sense energy and spirits. And you know, while a lot of people would look at me and listen to what I'm saying and saying, yeah, because you're fucking crazy and the medication was working, dumbass. Well, no, I think that it's just like, you know, what you were describing with the anxiety medication. It's that, you know, when people do go through these experiences and they find themselves in these situations, you know, I really don't think that, you know, at 30, you know, your mid 30s, that you're just all of a sudden one day going to wake up and be bipolar. You know, it's something that I would think that you would have experienced throughout your life, you know, severe ups and downs, you know, on that emotional spectrum. It really just doesn't make sense to me that is just all of a sudden going to be the case one day when you wake up in the middle of your life. I think that, you know, to me anyways, being someone that does what I do and someone that's been through what I've been through, is very obvious that it is a very spiritual thing. And that as you begin to awaken, you're going to experience sensations and situations and things that you really can't at that point in time understand, realize, and identify with. And it can be scary, but it can also be you know, extremely exciting and gratifying, and you will feel things on all ends of the emotional spectrum that you've never felt before. And you know, instead of trying to tell it to shut the fuck up, do what you can do to embrace it and to work through it and to receive the messages that it is trying to send you, and to be, you know, help yourself become the spiritual being that it's trying to help you to become, and to usher in into your life, and to help you really discover and find out who you truly are, what your real purpose is in life. You know, I think it's really sad to see that there are, you know, millions of people out there that could be so much more spiritually advanced than they are, but they are instead taking chemical medications to stop it in its tracks.
Yeah, you know, and that's the same therapist that I'm referencing of, and I've referenced him several times because his philosophy is pretty awesome. It is based. He is an LDS fellow, a Mormon fellow, and so his spiritual philosophy is very centered around that. But his approach to the mind is pretty intense. Where so we all try to escape pain. We try to escape fear. You know, when I first went and saw this guy on my first meeting with him, I said, you know, I feel like I don't have any limits. The physical world doesn't apply to me. The physical laws. I just don't feel like I'm in a healthy recognition of my own mortality, really. And the thing was at that point, for sure, and it still does, that reality reflects that at me, that I could do whatever the fuck I wanted and make any change I want in reality. And a feeling of invincibility is okay in the right circumstances, and you know, and only if it's true. You can invoke invincibility, and you'll know it when it's upon you. but it's you do revert back to your normal human state at some point. You come back to the normal guy, and so you can't walking around all the time feeling like you can't be touched is not a safe way to live. It's not a sane way to live. So I went to him and said that, and his response was, "Okay, let's go out and do some rock climbing." I was like, "Okay, but you're the expert. I'm going to put myself in your hands. Whatever you say that we need to do." And so we go out, and I'd never done rock climbing before. I was always afraid of heights, terrified of heights. And he got me up there. We get to this wall. We've got these all over the place here. So there's sandstone everywhere. So there are climbing routes all over the place. So I climb up a little bit, take the first couple of handholds, pull myself up, and I'm sitting on the wall, and I look down and realize, holy shit, I'm at that point only like 6 feet off the ground. That's not that high. I used to be a house painter, and I would climb ladders much, much higher than that. But hanging on to this tiny little rope, and the rock doesn't feel strong enough. I don't feel strong enough. And I'm going, let me down. I got to get down. I got to get down out of this right now. And he let me down, and then I'd go back up, and then after a couple of times of that, I'd freak out and go, "Let me down." He's on belay. We're using the fireman's belay, so he's standing below me holding the rope, and he holds it tight. He says, "Nope, just sit there for a minute." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Put your feet on the rock." So I put my feet out on the rock in front of me. I'm connected to a rope. I'm perfectly safe. All of the equipment is as it should be. I'm with a professional who does this for a living. But I was frozen, and I had to sit with the fear. And it took me about 1.5 years of working with this guy. And most of our sessions, every now and again, if I had to talk through something, if there was a problem I had to encounter, I would do it in his office, and we'd have a talk session. But most of the time, we would do it all on the rocks. We'd do rappelling, canyoneering, rock climbing, and as the trauma would set in, and I would want to escape, that's when the real therapy would start. You go, "Okay, so how do you feel right now? And what's going on in your mind? What does this feel like?" Identify it specifically. Give it a name. And we all try to escape our trauma and escape pain and fear. But if you just sit with it for a minute, and this is one of the big things, one of the first exercises I give people is to light a black candle in a dark room, call on all of the forces of darkness, everything that's evil and appalling, everything that could destroy you, and then blow out the candle as soon as you feel them there, and look into the darkness and sit with it. Sit with it. Most people can't. Most people turn the light on pretty quick, but just sit with it, and the fear goes away. The fear goes to the background, I think. It's like the fear is still there. I go rappelling constantly, and every time I walk to the edge, there's still that point, and I just have to breathe in, breathe out, and just move. And so the fear is still there. But the thing is that the fear stops telling you what to do. Because in standard life, we react a lot to fear. Now, if you stop reacting to fear, you can start putting things together. And then back to like the paying attention to your emotions again, though. If you're freezing and retreating, if you just freeze up and then I got to get out of this emotion, then you're not learning anything from it. And this is the same thing with any kind of ritual or any kind of revelation or anything. Most of the time when people summon a spirit, they get an answer, but then they don't believe it. Oh, that's just my imagination. I just made that up. Go with it for a minute. Just explore it. Sit with it for a minute. You don't even have to believe it. Just sit with it for a minute. I just got a message. Was that from me or from that spirit? Well, what was the message? The message was this. Write down that message, and then you can evaluate it later. It doesn't matter if it's from you or the spirit. Just go with it. Sit with it. Maybe it's bullshit. Sometimes it is, and you get to weed those out pretty quickly. If you hear somebody who's channeling, Elizabeth Clare Prophet's a great example. I love what she's done with her channeling. She's channeling. I believe she was channeling Saint Germain for a bit, and I'm not. I think Saint Germain was one of her main ones, and she would do these recorded sessions where she would channel Saint Germain. People could ask her questions, and she would channel his answers. And you can hear and feel the difference in her voice when she's speaking from her own self, because she would inject her own thoughts about things, about music, about culture, or whatever. You could feel the distinct shift and even hear it. I did a ritual the other day of Asmodee, and you know, I sent you the videos for that. And in watching those, as I'm editing those videos, I'm hearing my voice going, that's not my voice. Like that is, and the shift is very clear. The appearance of the person, the countenance is different. Something real is happening there, but you have to be willing to go along for the adventure. If you're not willing to suspend that, then I mean, you don't. If you're not willing to suspend your fear that you might be wrong, then you're bound. You're completely bound. As soon as you go, you know what? J.P. Sears, dude's awesome. Love his stuff. He has a mantra that I was listening. He does his comedy thing, but he also has some very serious things. But he merges them really well. Well, one of the things he said that in this mantra that he gave was, "I'm full of shit, and it's okay." And you know what? If you can approach your rituals, go, you know, maybe I'm full of shit, and it's okay. I'm gonna go with it. You start finding out that there's a rabbit's foot there, and that when you rub it, certain things happen. And honestly, I don't understand all the mechanics of it. I'm stiff. I don't know that I ever will, because I think the mechanics of how all of this works is so far beyond what we can perceive with our senses and our consciousness at this point. There's a book I would like to recommend everybody check out. It's not one of my books, and it's not a book I sell. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. This book, if you read it with a magical mind, it unlocks doors for you. In order to work miracles that are beyond what you can work, you need to speak languages and understand a language that is beyond what our language facilitates. Because your words create your thoughts, which create your reality. Now, if you can start to speak and this is why the barbarous tongues are interesting. The demonic languages that I've channeled are interesting. V's Enochian is interesting because it's rewiring our brains to be able to do things that they otherwise couldn't do, simply because we're using words that maybe we don't even understand, but it's having the effect. It's something within us. That's the thing when I receive a demonic tongue, when I have a demon or a spirit speak to me in a language that I don't recognize, I write it down phonetically, because I don't know, or if they show me a symbol, I just make that symbol. And sometimes I can trace these to actual historical places. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's just completely unknown to me. But either way, I'm making contact and learning how to think in a way that's different, that's beyond what's possible with human vocabulary. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, like from birth, we're just so led to believe that we are so limited that we totally miss the boat on our limitlessness, and it's, to get out of our comfort zone, to be able to do things that our brain just cannot even fathom should be possible. All of those things are just so ingrained within our DNA almost, it seems like, that, we just greatly limit ourselves because we believe that we are limited. And if you can kind of push that aside, just like you on the side of that face of that rock cliff, if you're able to push that aside, then you can see that, yes, in fact, you can accomplish what you set out to accomplish, and you can do it. And it's really not a big deal at all. But until you had accepted the fact that you are going to be able to push those boundaries, and that it's going to be okay and perfectly safe to get out of that comfort zone, then, you can accomplish great things.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I'll tell you what, when I was still doing cabinetry, I'd written a few books. And published them, and That was cool. I really didn't make much money on my first few books at all. I had the Prince tell me something. When I started working with him and writing Spider and Green Butterfly, once again, this guy would drop seeds. He would plant seeds that I would be able to take and run with. And he says, you've got a choice to make. You can be a person of greatness, or you can be the person you are now. You can't be both. You can't be both. Now, that is as true for me today as it was then. That you can't get attached to who you think you are. There's once again, back to Jim Carrey. One of the things he said in some of his recent interviews is that as he plays these roles, specifically he realized this while he was playing the role of Andy Kaufman, that he became Andy. He became the role. And then when he had to go back to being Jim Carrey, he realized that was just another role. That was just another personality that he's taking on. Well, so if these are all just roles, what's real underneath? And you only hit that in complete silence. You know, I had just about a year ago or so, I was meditating. I had made this idol of myself. It was a cool thing. It was like it was like a representation of my soul at that moment, and it was a chalice with chains all over it.
Yeah, you showed me.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. So I had made that, and I would kneel before it and worship it, and devote myself to myself, and see what it had to tell me. And at one point it said to enter into silence, that once you become completely silent, that the seeds of infinite regeneration will begin to activate within yourself. That when you can sit in complete silence, that's when the miracles start happening. And you reach this through, I mean, this is in any ritual or meditation or whatever, you hit this point, there's almost like a chaos that builds with the ritual. Like it's like a maelstrom, a storm that's just raging around you of energy and whatever. And then there's a certain point where it just stops and it goes quiet. And at most of the people at that point, they go, okay, the ritual is done. And they close it and go about the way. Okay, I must have hit it. Sit there in that silence and become completely silent with it. And that's when the actual breakthrough happens. That's when you realize you've been waiting for the spirit to come into the room, but the room disappears. The room becomes irrelevant. The spirit. I had one of the first people that I knew that actually could evoke spirits, evoke demons. Told me, you've got to meet them halfway. They'll come halfway to you. You go halfway to them. That's the crossroads. That's that dark keyhole that we talked about at the beginning of this. And when you can go there and at the same time remain enough intact with the reality of that spirit, then you have the real connection.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that myself. And some of the rituals that were the most intense for me, to where it's, like I've read some of your books and heard you describe before how, you really do feel like the floor drops out from underneath you, and that you are swept away to an entirely different place.
Yeah, that's I'll tell you what, that was a disturbing thing to, once again, with the occult. As you study the occult, you just get vocabulary for things that you've probably already been experiencing, and sometimes what I've found in my work is that the vocabulary is not there, and so I create new words, or I take words from other systems and inject them into this one, and so I call that dropping through rings of reality. That's just how I've always referred to it. And what happens is I first experienced this when I was sitting in church. I'm watching this guy give this talk in church, and he's rambling on forever. It's boring. I'm not paying attention, but I'm looking at him because you're supposed to be looking at the guy that's talking. And so my eyes kind of start to draw back, and all of a sudden I start seeing this glow around him. And, at this point, I'm maybe like 13, 14 years old. Start seeing a glow developing. I'm like, what is this? And then I start feeling like I'm dizzy, like I'm maybe about to pass out. And so I'm kind of like, one of the biggest things with my family for some reason was that they were very concerned about not being embarrassed. And I honestly, I was an embarrassment to the family. I was in high school. I'm this sorcerer, gothic kid walking around claiming to talk to demons. I was an embarrassment on the family a bit. But that was always the thing, don't cause a scene. Don't embarrass us. And so I was feeling like I was about to black out, but I was hoping I wouldn't, because that'd be embarrassing. I didn't want to tap my dad and say, "Hey, I got to leave. I got to go to the," we were really, really, I think, wrongly taught to shut up and whatever. So that's what I did. But then at that point, it felt like the floor had dropped out, and I was tipping forward, and then I was kind of side to side, and then tumbling upside down. And at that point, I had completely, everything was still happening around me. The whole church session was going on, but I was completely unaware of it. I'd gone into that dark space within. And at that point, I had that happen spontaneously for years before I could lock onto it and go, wait a minute, when that starts happening, then that's when you can make shit happen. That actually happened to me when I first tried astral projecting. When I was in high school, I got together with these friends. Some of them are still some of my best friends to this day. And we started doing rituals together. They were interested in it, and I was very vocal about my interest in it. And so we got together and started doing rituals together. And at one point, we're like, hey, let's try astral projection. And so we start trying this thing where you're laying down in bed and you see a rope coming down, and so you can feel your astral hands grab the rope and then pull you up. And I start doing that, and it's just a silly imagination. But then all of a sudden I start feeling like the floor dropped out, like I'm tumbling in space. And I think that's when it hit me. Wait a minute, this is a significant state. If you can experience this state, you can reproduce it. Any state that you can experience, if you experience it not just once, because once is novel, but if you can experience something, I say 3 times, then it's locked in. The first time if you look at the classification of serial killers, in order to be classified as a serial killer, you need to have killed 3 people using a very same ritual. Very same ritual is how they refer to it. Now, that's because the first time is traumatic. You're like shocked by the whole thing, and so you withdraw. The second time, you kind of go, whoa, that's interesting. This is happening again. On the third time, you can really start to identify, oh, this is what this is. And that's really what I feel like was happening at that moment. And then once you lock into it, you can go, okay, well, what did I do to get there? What did I do to produce that? And how can I produce that at will? Once you have the experience, you can start that whole experiment process, and then you can jump into what I call the theta gamma sync or crossroads, or you can go as deep as you want instantly once you learn how to turn it on and off. So
yeah, I'm like, as far as astral projection goes, I've experienced it a few times, but I'm still not really able to get to that state at will, and that's something that I really, really want to work on, because it's something that I'm super, super interested in. But probably like a lot of people out there, I find myself delving into so many different things at once, and I want to do all of these things, and it's like, well, I kind of have to pick and choose what I want to focus on, right now. But but a lot of it too can be incorporated into other aspects of your magical practice, so that it's that state that you're speaking of there. Not only could you use it for astral projection, but you can also maybe use it to access the crossroads, a ritual for evocation, and various other things. So it's I can get sidetracked so easily and focus on other things that maybe aren't as important in the grand scheme of it all. And I had to try to like reel myself back in and say, okay, well, yeah, maybe I do need to focus on this, because this one aspect is going to help me to accomplish X, Y, and Z, you know, not just A. So, you know, it's just, you know, I guess like the, you know, typical black magician, you know, I want it all and I want it now.
Mm-hmm. One of the cool things that I've experienced is I've had a lot of mentors, and most of them didn't know that they were mentors. You know, they're just people that come by and they say a couple sentences, and those couple sentences change everything. They had no idea what they're saying or who they're talking to, or none of it. They're just being, once again, you know, you take a drink. It's just it's the coffee. You know, it's the coffee, and it's me sitting here, and there's a relationship there, and there are a million reasons why I'm doing that, and I don't understand most of them. And so these people will come up and they'll say things, and they don't understand why. I don't understand why, but they say it. And one of the things a guy told me in passing was, "You already are everything that you want to be." And I go, well, you got the process of ascent, and you got this and this and this. And he's like, oh, yeah. But you already are everything that you want to be. That can be explored in different ways, and that's what Magick does. Is I'll tell you what, you get to experience and explore so many different facets of your being by working with these spirits, by working with Magick. This is the most intense exploration of the human being is being conducted through Magick that ever. Now, I also think it's an exploration of our outside world and our connection with that and whatever. But even if you just want to look at it just as some weird thing that we do, as some sort of psychodrama or whatever, we are delving into our consciousness in some crazy, crazy, crazy ways. So it's the reality of it always startles me. Like it never gets old, you know. There's like so many things just are so uninteresting and redundant. But this field, I mean, it never gets old to stand in front of a demon, you know, to look a spirit in the face, just to be at the crossroads and to have that knowledge and that conversation. It never gets old. The biggest thing I think when you're like you're talking about how astral projection and soul travel is difficult. All of these things are super, super easy. Once again, once you can switch it on, then you can just switch it on. Self-criticism is the biggest part. So I went to California for Christmas. We kind of ditched out on celebrating Christmas in the traditional way, you know. My daughter's, you know, a teenager at this point, and so she hasn't really cared that much. She celebrates Yule with her mother. Her mother is pagan holidays, and I don't care either way. So we get a couple presents for the kid, and we went to California. But I'm on the beach, and I'm looking across. There's a sand spit that goes way out there, and so I breathe in and breathe out and push myself out to the end of the sand spit where I could see a little dot of something. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to investigate. So I soul travel over to it, and I see it up close, and I go, okay, it's a bush. And I go, well, wait a minute, is it a bush or is it? Yeah, I started questioning it, and at that point, I'm back in my body going, I don't know if I just saw a bush or a table or a person. I don't know what this is because I started. There was just that doubt. And mind you, you know, this is as I'm sitting at a cafe drinking mimosas with my girlfriend. Like, this is a casual, just I'm going to shoot over there and see what's going on. But no matter how many times you do it, you still do have that question that'll come in, and it's the Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. I don't know if I would get that extreme with it, but it's that self-sabotaging part of yourself. The part of yourself that's going, no, you're wrong, you know. And as soon as you're able to stop caring whether you're right or wrong, you're going to find out that you're tapping into some pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, that negative self-talk and self-doubt, you know, it's really one of the most powerful forces in our lives, I think, that really has the most control over us, over anything else. You know, like that we are like our own worst enemy in a lot of ways, and that, you know, we could push the boundaries as much as we would like to, if we could, you know, in fact, quiet that voice and really learn how to be the true master over that, you know. And you know, like, I know for me, you know, once I can really truly get to that point, you know, there's no telling, you know, the possibilities will be endless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, the big divide in all of this, or I think the it's not an obstacle, but it's really an opportunity, I think, is in not in having the experience, but in interpreting the experience. You know, I shot myself over to this place that I hadn't seen physically, that I could barely make out. Shoot myself over there, and I saw something, and I could see it pretty clearly. But the one object that I questioned, the questioning came as an afterthought. It was my conscious mind trying to wrap itself around something. This is a lot of people who have near-death experiences, or sensory deprivation tank experiences, these kinds of things. Most of the time, when they first come out of it, they're like, "Oh wow, there was like a bright light and a sense of love and connection." Give them about a week, and they will have seen Jesus, and their family was around them, and Grandma and Aunt Mary was there, and all of this stuff starts to develop as the conscious mind is trying to lock onto it. Maybe the conscious mind is filtering and receiving these impressions. Honestly, the conscious mind makes up a lot of bullshit, and so this is one of the things that I think it's important when you're in ritual or you're having these experiences to record it while you're in that experience. Whether you're filming, I mean, I film everything, and so I've got pure records of all that I'm doing. But I'll also take notes of what the spirits are saying in the moment, because without analyzing it, without criticizing it. I ask the question, and whatever comes, I write down. Now afterwards, I can go ahead and analyze that, whatever. But the evidence is there. That's the evidence. That's one of the big things that people are asking constantly. Where's the evidence? EA, show us the evidence. Get your own damn evidence. Do your own experiments. I mean, to take any of this and start applying it, and you get your evidence. Keep a journal, and you're going to have the journals that we as Black magicians have, and whether you're actually journaling and saying, I doing this whole journal thing about your experience, or if you're just writing down the name of the spirit, what you asked it to do, and whether or not that happens at some point in the future. You're creating a grimoire of your experiences that you can look through and go, okay, this has actually happened. And then you create your own evidence, and then your life becomes the evidence. I mean, you mentioned that you'd come out here for my boot camp, and one of the last things I told you was that the life that you're returning to is not the life that you came from, that you're going to a completely different world, completely new life. And it seems like, just from looking at it, it seems like that's exactly what's happened. One of the teachings of Jesus, by their fruits ye shall know them. And so you got a lot of people that talk a lot, but I mean, what's your life look like? How happy are you? And that's something that I'm asking to the mirror. I'm asking to the mirror, and the mirror is your life. Once again, if I'm feeling anxious about something, I've got to see, well, what can I do? Or if I see that something's there, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't pay attention to politics. I don't pay attention to a lot of what's going on. I honestly, I've got a Facebook account, and every now and again I'll jump in on conversations or whatever. But for the most part, I'm not a consumer of social media because I don't want to fill my head with. I've censored a lot of things out, but I focus myself on the things that I really want to involve in my life. I had this guy send me a message saying, hey, You live in Utah. That's really close to Yellowstone. Now, Yellowstone's about to blow up any day now. Aren't you worried about that? And I wrote back to him and said, brother, if I start worrying about that, I'm going to manifest that shit. I'm not going to start thinking about that. Now, because he said that, I went and actually looked at the details of it, went, okay, so it's doing really the same thing it's been doing for quite a while. Could it blow? Probably. Can I do anything about that? I could maybe move, but geez, I mean, how far do we got to move to get, and then what, there's a whole, I'm going to focus on the things that are going to make my life better and the lives of those people around me better. And then in my community, my local community, what can I do to make that better? And then the larger, grander community, the occult community that I'm so happy to be part of, what can I do to help move that forward? And that's how, that, in my opinion, that's how you change the world. You know, it's Timothy and I, the co-creator of Become a Living God, and awesome dude. We have some pretty intense conversations sometimes. And, you know, I went to him once and I said, you know, as we were getting Become a Living God off the ground, I said, you know, I want to start getting people together and start affecting politics and start affecting world events and pushing this world in the direction we want it to go. And he goes, well, let's take a step back here. Is that the route to true power? But no matter what political structure it is, it's tyranny. No matter what political structure it is, it's tyranny. And so really, you want to change the world, you've got to do it on a microcosmic scale. You have to do it with each individual. And so I've got to look at my life, empower my life in the ways that I feel it needs to be empowered, and then share that with others that I care about so that they can empower their lives. And then, you know, I would like to see the government not really have much to do. And so, you know, I try to live my life in a way that the cops never get called to worry about me, because I'm not living my life in a way that they would have to worry about me. You know, I spend a lot of time out in nature, and I almost always bring a black trash bag with me, and I fill it up with trash. A lot of people walk by, oh, that's somebody else's problem. The government will get that. They have people that are hired to get that. Well, let's not worry. Maybe pick up after ourselves, and in every way, and see. I mean, at this point, I'll tell you what. At this point in life, my life feels like it's perfect. I feel like I can't think of a single thing that I would change. But that's not the end of the road, because there's something else is going to come up. Something else is going to rise to the surface. Another level, and maybe something that I didn't realize that I need to confront, or maybe just another level of happiness. This is one of the cool things, is like in Tantra, when I was exploring Tantra, and I still am exploring Tantra quite a bit, we have this idea that there's a cap on how much ecstasy and joy and happiness we can experience, right? You go too far beyond that, and it starts to get overwhelming. It's you know, once you start pushing against that ceiling, though, and letting yourself, not just your body, not just your orgasm, but your whole self explode into the ether. And that is when you spread yourself into omnipresence. That is when you completely transcend. And just because I'm saying Tantra doesn't mean that this has to be done in sex. This can be done with anything. In neurolinguistics programming, listening to Richard Bandler, he's got some awesome philosophies. Every emotion that you feel, every sensory impression that you get is a form of ecstasy. You can wrap it up and crank it up until it becomes ecstasy. So let's say you're feeling sad, you feel a little down. Rather than trying to fight that, feel really down. Feel so down that you just can't even move, and really get yourself into the drama of it. And pretty quick it becomes ecstasy. You know, anything, I mean, pain. Hold your hand over a candle flame and interpret that. And, you know, you don't want to burn yourself. Don't hurt yourself. Don't be stupid. But feel the pain of it. And start interpreting that, letting it flow down your body, through your arm, into all of your senses, and it becomes ecstasy. Everything can become ecstasy. And that's even the formula of Yad He Vav He. You know, ecstasy is the key.
No, I agree. I agree with you. And it's, you know, that's really, I think, what everybody really is searching for in their lives, is to experience as much of that as they possibly can. I know that I am. And I have experienced massive ecstasy through ordeals that really were quite painful at the time, you know, but I really had to kind of change my perspective on what exactly it was that I was going through in order to attain that ecstasy. And if I hadn't really subjected myself to it, or even looked at it from a different angle, all I would have done really was kind of like wallow in that turmoil, you know. So like I had to really go and push myself into it fully, and go all the way through it and experience every level of it in order to attain that ultimate ecstasy. And you know, it's, I can look back on my life and like see where that has happened to me in many, many, many different ways, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, Christopher Hyatt, you know, he had a whole speech that he would give about the fact that all of these systems really are just leading, whether it's a religion or a ritual or whatever. But the whole idea is to get yourself into an ecstatic state, to get yourself into that ecstasy. And when you can, and this is what Tantra teaches, when you can get into that ecstasy, get into that altered state, but then ride it, like it's almost like you're surfing on the ecstasy, then you can actually direct it to the goals that you want to achieve. You can direct it to the changes that you want to make within yourself, within your world. But it does take getting there multiple times. I'll tell you what, holding your concentration on the end result that you want to have when you're leading towards orgasm is hard. It is a difficult thing to do. But once you get familiar with it and train yourself to have that kind of control, and it's, you know, a lot of people, well, when it comes to tantric concepts, a lot of people are like, well, I like sex so much, I don't want to be distracted by thinking about this, that, the other. When you really get into it, when you really get into the tantric spirit, you are always in ecstasy, first of all, and that anything that you do can just create a new level of it, or a new understanding of it, and it's not. It doesn't take away from that at all. Actually, if you're doing it right, you have experiences that the orgasm itself seems, it's second place. It's not that interesting compared to the blasting through of your greatest self, your Atman, blasting through your physical body and merging with your partner, merging with the all. I mean, it's a crazy experience, but yeah.
That's definitely something that I want to explore more. And you know, it's, I wish that I had a partner that I could experience that with. You know, it's my wife definitely really isn't into, you know, anything as far as exploring, you know, Tantra, sex magic, things like that. And that's really something that, you know, I would have to find a way to explore on my own. But it's, you know, it's always been something that I have just been insanely interested in. And, you know, you're definitely fortunate that you have a partner that you can experience those things with. I mean, that's definitely something not to take for granted.
Well, and you know, and obviously it is best if you're both involved in the process, but you don't necessarily have to be, because the real work is going on within yourself. Is I'm going to tell you what, it's like a dance, all right? So you can go up to somebody and be like, all right, let's dance, and here are the moves we're going to do. I don't really like to dance that way. I just like to get out and let the experience unfold itself. And so I think even if your partner has no conscious awareness of what you're doing, you start I'm going to tell you what, start out with gazing into their eyes. Most people most people don't do this when they're having sex. Most people close their eyes and they go away to this, and that's cool too. That escapism through sex is awesome. That's fun. But to have a real connection, gaze into that person's eyes as you're having that, as you're having sex, as you're making love, and then through that, start feeling the energy exchanging as you're breathing. Now, your partner might look away, and that's fine. They might get uncomfortable with that because, gazing into somebody's eyes, even though it's the person you're having sex with, it's the mother of your children, all of that, there's still those walls up, sometimes even stronger in those relationships than with strangers. But there seem to be more walls that can be built when you become too familiar with somebody. But that's part of the relationship, is learning how to break those walls back down. But yeah, gaze into her eyes for a bit. Focus on the breathing. What's going on with your bodies is almost irrelevant, because your body is going to start to adapt to what's going on with the spirit of the thing. You can start the internal process. One of the first things that I was taught to do was do a simple visualization as you're having sex, that you are either the beach or the waves crashing on the beach. Doesn't matter which one you choose, because pretty quickly you become both of them. And you do this while you're having sex, and while you're gazing into their eyes, while you're breathing and together and exchanging that energy, but you also have the background visualization of you are either the waves or the beach. And then all of a sudden you're both. And then you're the air that's being created by the splashing, and you are everything. It is a transcendental experience where you become not just yourself and your partner, but you become something else that is the ethereal force that is everything. I mean, you literally enter into omnipresence in that moment, and it is momentary. That's the thing. All of these things are momentary things that flash. It's a flash, and you go, "God, I got it," and then it goes away, and you got to chase after it again.
Yeah, it's it sounds like it's very much like a drug would be.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Well, and I'll tell you what, even just pursuing the most mild forms of tantric lovemaking, it does crazy things for your ability to connect with people, even in a non-sexual way. If you have a partner that will consciously go along with this, you don't have to call it sex magic. You don't have to call it tantra. I would just like to do something with you. We go along for this experiment with you. I would like to connect with you on a deeper level. You don't have to use magical terms. But then sitting is usually most comfortable. You can kneel, sit or kneel, looking at each other, look in each other's eyes. As one of you breathes out, the other breathes in. You don't have to be close to each other, but just do that. Just breathe. Try to toggle your breathing. And then as you do that, try to feel what that other person is feeling as they're breathing out. And then as you breathe out, you try to just push your feelings. No thoughts, no words, just feelings back and forth. Now, here's the important thing. Don't worry about verifying it. That's where people get lost, because once again, that's where the conscious mind comes in and says, oh yeah, I have to make sure I'm right. I have to make sure that I wasn't wrong. Now, and so they'll be like, oh, well, I was thinking this. Is that what you picked up? As soon as you start doing that, you've ruined the whole thing. You've ruined the intimacy, whatever. Just transition from that to making love or hugging each other and then going about your day. But having those moments of connection, you can stimulate your partner into, if you're leading the dance, you can stimulate your partner into and they're not going to complain, really. They're not going to complain. If they don't go along with it or whatever, if it's an awkward thing, that's fine. In order to grow, we have to be uncomfortable. That's one of the biggest things, that when we're retreating from fear, we're retreating from discomfort, we're not allowing ourselves the ability to grow from the thing. And so gazing into somebody's eyes, or, I'm one of those guys that a lot of times I will say very authentic, heartfelt things to friends. I will let my friends, male, female, it doesn't matter. I'll let them know that I love them, that I'm thinking about them, that I really care about them, and that they're very important in my life. Now, not a lot of people do that. I'm kind of a weird guy because I do that. But you know what? The few friends that I do that with, we're very tight, and we can talk about anything, and we have a connection that's just unheard of. I mean, same thing with my relationship with my girlfriend is mythical. I mean, everybody who knows us is jealous of us and supporting us at the same time because we are the couple everybody wants to be. And I've had those where it's been a complete facade before and we're really miserable. This is not one of those. I am so fucking madly in love with this woman. But a good deal of it is because even though we're not engaging in what you would call tantric sex or sex magic, she wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it that while I'm with her doing it, but that's what we're doing. I mean, you know, it's funny. My girlfriend's very powerful. She's a very, very powerful, energetic person. And she knows that if she puts her mind to something, she can make it happen. Just knowing it, seeing it happening, puts the flow out there, and when she manifests stuff, she's like, "Hey, I manifested that for you." She thinks the vocabulary is kind of woo woo and new age, and so she doesn't want to participate in that too much. But she's doing it, like you said earlier. Not too many people want to identify themselves as sorcerers, but there are a lot of people that are doing everyday sorcery.
My wife is the same exact way. Like, we were just talking about this last night. I had a client of mine, and he was asking for something specific, and you know, I mentioned the situation to her, and she's like, "Oh, well, I think it's, you know, not telling you everything, and that this and this and this is going on." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, you're probably right, you know." And she usually is always right. And I'm like, "So, you know, so what do you think about that? You know, you always like write it off like it's nothing, and like that you don't have any ability at all, you know." And she's just like, "You know, I just look at the situation and you know, I use my intuition." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Like, well, what the fuck? You know, like, that's what I'm telling you. Like, you are capable of doing so much more than you realize, and you know it, but you're not gonna like really own up to it, you know, because it's putting like a new age, you know, vocabulary to it. And that's, you know, has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. And, you know, therefore that's not gonna have anything to do with her life. And, you know, it drives me crazy, but, you know, like, I have to feel like she knows. I know she knows how powerful she is. And I know that she knows all of this stuff is real, but yet she's not going to let that, you know, she's not going to utter that out of her lips at all, ever. I mean, maybe it'll happen one day, but, you know, it's just like, I just want to like scream sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you what, I see this like with so the work that we're doing in this world, hopefully will one day lead to these very things that are now, sorcery being studied and taught to children. And you know, I think everybody should know that everybody should know that your consciousness creates your reality. And so that's important. I see my daughter, and I when she was a little kid, I was teaching her how to do spells and work voodoo and call on spirits. I taught her how to do banishings. She knows how to do all these things. She loves coming in, and she'll come into my temple here and get my singing bowl out and just play my singing bowl and sit in here and sit with the spirits, and she loves it. But I really don't think she will ever become an occultist. Maybe she will. Maybe she'll surprise me. But it doesn't necessarily matter to me. See, and this is where, once again, it comes into when you're on the left-hand path, you realize that, once again, it's all the same power. It doesn't matter if you're you know, a priest or a priestess or a druid or a Satanist. These are all just labels, and labels are limitations. And so, you know, whatever, like choose whatever label you want, but you're pulling from the same force, the same source, the same power. You're just directing it in a different way. And how you direct that power is important for sure. You know, if you're once again working with like a Judeo-Christian entities and working within that framework, you're going to that the prism that power flows through is going to change the manifestation for sure, but it's still the same power. And so whether I think I could celebrate the fact that my girlfriend doesn't want to call it what I want to call it. that she's calling it something different, but it's the same thing. And so I feel very, very lucky to have to be with somebody that can admit it. And I think you're probably in the same place where even though your wife doesn't admit what it is, she admits that it's there. She just wants to call it something else, and she wants to marginalize it. That's fine. But admitting it is a big thing. You go, yeah, there's some crazy shit that can happen in the world and in life, and maybe we don't know everything. That's one of the biggest things. Maybe we don't know everything about reality. That's one of the. I'll tell you what, I like the subject of UFOs and Bigfoot and all that. I don't get too crazy into it, but it's all interesting because it brings into question maybe we don't know everything about reality. Maybe there are some things that are unidentified and unidentifiable, and like in the occult, the whole pursuit is to try to pin those down and utilize them for our benefit, for sure.
I think, the moment that we do feel like that we do know it all and that we have labeled it all, that's when we're going to begin to backpedal. So I think that it's important for us to always have something to be searching after and working towards and trying to discover. It's kind of always been our that spirit within us to be pioneers and to try to push boundaries and to explore and then kind of conquer and dominate things and then to just kind of keep pushing outward, as we're doing now with space exploration and things like that. We're just going to kind of continue to build on that and who knows where that's going to lead. But I think that as human beings, it just seems to be vitally important to us to always have that some kind of carrot, so to speak, dangled in front of us of something that we want to attain that's unknown, but we gotta strive to figure it out and strive to find out what the mystery is. And as soon as we do find that, thank goodness there's yet another one there that we can then go and set our sights on that one and see what that's all about. It seems like if we did really get to the point where we did have all the answers, I don't know what we would do with ourselves, really.
Yeah, no, that's and that's the point. Yeah, the buzzword that I've used for my entire occult career, professional and non-professional, is ascent. That it's the process of, it's a never-ending process of growth. That there's just no limit to it. There's no limit to it, and that's very encouraging for me. I mean, you have to get over the idea of an end point of a success. And really, once you get over the idea of success, then you get over the idea of failure. Like everything is, there's no experience you can have that is going to subtract from your experience. Like, it's all experience. It's all success. You can, you define that however you want. Define your own successes, minor, however you want to define them. But yeah, I ask the spirits a lot, and the gatekeeper specifically a lot. What do I need to be doing? And most of the time, their answer is just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You're already walking the path you need to be on. And once again, the idea of free will is a bit ridiculous, because even though I think that I'm the one creating these miracles, it's like the miracles are flowing through me. Biblical, you can learn a lot of things in the Bible. God never acts upon the world himself. Instead, he has his prophets act. He acts through his prophets. So raise your staff and make the command, and the sun will blacken. A physical vessel is required to make changes in this physical world. Part of the reasons that these spirits are working with us in the first place. Yeah. But I could keep going forever, but I do have to let you go here pretty quick and go attend to my daughter's birthday party.
Yeah, same here. I've been getting blown up here because it's so cold here in Virginia. We have gotten so freaking busy. It's, it's awesome, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a pain in the ass to have to deal with too. But you got to take care of what you got to take care of, and
Oh yeah.
we have to tend to our physical lives as well. But this has been a blast, and I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next one very, very much.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for chatting with me. It's been a fun experience, and let me know. We'll plan out our next episode and kind of go from there. I don't know how much we stayed on topic for this conversation, but it was a great conversation. I think we can definitely just dive back in next time.
Damn right. Damn right. Well, I appreciate everybody for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.